Welcome to the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast. Today we're talking about the difference between active versus passive studying as part of our Quick Tips series. Your Bar Exam Toolbox hosts are Alison Monahan and Lee Burgess, that's me. We're here to demystify the bar exam experience so you can study effectively, stay sane, and hopefully pass and move on with your life. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. Alison also runs the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on your favorite listening app and check out our sister podcast, the Law School Toolbox podcast. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us via the contact form on barexamtoolbox.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started. Welcome back. Let's face it, there are a lot of different ways to study. On top of that, each one of us learns differently, so our approach to studying can vary based on our personality. However, there are some basic concepts about studying that can help you excel when studying for the bar exam. Specifically, active versus passive studying. Passive versus active studying. What does that even mean? Passive studying is generally described as processing information on a surface level, like reading notes or class slides, or listening to a lecture. Active studying is considered meaningfully engaging in the material in a way that promotes memorization and deep understanding. Active studying includes consistently checking in with yourself and asking, am I getting this? What am I not understanding? Unfortunately, when it comes time for bar prep, many students are exhausted. Traditional law students have just graduated from law school, and many consider that to be some of the hardest years of their life. Even if you took some time to work before taking the bar exam, approaching studying can be very daunting. As a student, you've just worked hard through your last ever final exams and are looking forward to celebrating your massive accomplishment of graduating law school just to start studying again. It can be easy to get caught up in passive studying and even easier to convince yourself that you're being productive while doing it. But the goal should be to study smarter, not harder. Increasing your levels of active studying will increase the overall quality of your work, and then you will feel less stress about increasing the quantity of your work. You may have already experienced the downfalls of passive studying in your first year of law school. Many students realizing that reading and rereading outlines or notes is a good way to feel like they're studying, but come exam day, they have a really hard time. And while many law schools are on the cusp of adding variety to the way that they teach, there is definitely still a big emphasis on reading and listening to lectures in law school. Sure, answering questions in class can be a form of active studying, but typical law students spend most of their time reading during law school. That is why it's up to you to make sure you're actively engaged in the material in a way that's going to help you pass the bar exam on the first try. Because what worked for you in law school very well may not work for you during this new season of bar prep. Bar prep is all about active studying. For example, one student can study 10 to 12 hours a day and still not pass the bar because they didn't do enough active studying. The flip side is that a student who spends around 8 hours a day studying, but because they are actively studying most of the time, they pass the bar exam. Unfortunately, our default as humans is to take the path of least resistance. It feels really good to say that you just studied for 10 hours, when really what you were doing was just reviewing outlines. Don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place to review outlines, but it probably is not as often as you think, and it's certainly not going to be the bulk of your bar exam study. It's easy and comfortable to stay in the space of passive studying. But remember, you worked hard to get where you are. The bar exam is your final chance to shine and show the world all you've accomplished during law school. So give it your best because it will pay off immensely. Here are some concrete examples of what is considered passive studying. If you find yourself cramming, reading material just to memorize and not retain the information, you are likely passive studying. Similarly, if you find yourself unable to apply the information you're learning to real-world examples or just reading and rereading notes and outlines, you likely have not moved to active studying. Staying in the review phase of studying and not moving forward into practice problems, both essay, multiple choice, and performance tests. Studying just to pass the exam, not to have complete understanding, and simply rewriting notes or outlines word for word are all examples of passive studying. Students who spend their time passively studying will listen to lectures just to fill in the outlines. They won't stop to ask themselves questions about the material, and they procrastinate the important tasks, like practice exams. Another trap of passive studying is reviewing practice essays to simply issue spot, but never fully writing out an answer. Similarly, not testing yourself under timed conditions can be a form of passive studying. Having an overall attitude of distraction, or let's just get this over with, can indicate that you are passively studying. Now, please don't get us wrong. Review days are important. You cannot expect your body or your brain to operate at full capacity every single day of bar prep. There will be days when you simply need a few hours to review your outlines and re-listen to lectures. But if you're listening to this podcast and it's dawning on you that the list I just described is how you spend the majority of your time, let this be your wake-up call. It's not too late to change how you study. And remember, studying for the bar exam is different than studying for law school exams. You may think that reviewing was how you passed your law school exams, and that could be true. But the bar exam is all about practice, practice, and practice. With that, let me share some examples of active studying. A student who is actively studying is writing down their questions as they read. They are continually paraphrasing concepts in their own words. They prioritize practice exams and multiple choice, even if they totally miss every single answer. They take time to teach the material to another person, bonus points if it's a non-lawyer, so they can understand how the concepts fit together. They approach studying with the goal of understanding the information and applying it to real-world hypotheticals, not just the goal of memorization. They work at the pace they need to really understand the information, and they do not cram. They don't study in the same way every single day of bar prep, but they utilize all the different resources available to them, even if they don't use one resource very often. They review what they need to improve and what didn't work while studying from the day before. They have an attitude of curiosity, one that will help carry them through the hard days of bar prep. While each bar prep program is a bit different, they do have something in common. They ask students to start practicing essays and multiple choice before the students feel ready. This is an important part of bar prep. If you wait until you feel you're ready, it will be too late. It is crucial to jump into practice as a way to actively engage your brain with the material and to feel what the bar exam will be like. Students who wait until the last 3 weeks or so to complete full, timed practice essays have done themselves a disservice. So let's talk about this for a minute. Most students who are taking the bar have high standards for themselves. Let's face it, you made it through law school, so you must have a standard of excellence for yourself to some degree. However, your standard for yourself can be deceiving in bar prep, meaning if you wait until you feel like you know the material before you put it into practice, you have gone wrong. This is crucial to understand as you enter bar exam season. You must start practicing before you are ready. Even if your practice essays are incredibly sparse, you must do them anyway. In some sense, the bar exam is a game, and your season of studying is learning how to play. You can stay in the preparation phase, or you can move to the practice phase. And trust us, you want to fail on practice exams much more than you want to fail on the real exam. So start practicing before you are ready. Allow yourself to fail the first few practice essays and multiple choice questions. This will force you to confront what you truly do and do not understand, and you will be more willing to engage in active studying after that. Also, reviewing outlines and listening to lectures does not highlight what you don't understand quite like a practice exam does. If you listen to a torts lecture several times, you may think you understand how intent works. However, it's only until you are faced with a practice exam that you are forced to piece together the facts and analysis regarding intent. It may feel humiliating, but it's worth it. A passive student may also believe that they need to spend every waking hour of their bar prep studying for the bar. This is what will quickly lead to burnout. You may find that you experience burnout often because you have spent a majority of your time just listening to lectures and reading outlines. On the other hand, a student who is actively engaged in the material understands that they need to create a realistic schedule that makes time for meaningful breaks, physical activity, and social interaction to do their best. A student who actively studies is constantly developing their critical thinking, not just about the material, but also about the way they are studying, and they are flexible enough to make a change if necessary. Students who study passively are more resistant to change. They want to stick with what they know, even if it ends up not preparing them adequately for the exam. Ask yourself which kind of student you are. Do you approach each day planning on actively engaging in the material? Or is your default to spend most of your time reviewing outlines and lectures and maybe issue spot one practice essay? The answer to these questions can make or break your bar prep season. To be clear, there may be some subjects you study during bar prep that you must simply memorize. There's no getting around it. And there also may be subjects where you just can't bring yourself to be interested in them. And that's okay. Once you understand your approach to studying each subject, you can still be actively engaged most of the time, even if the subject is dreadful. This is where creativity helps in your routine. And knowing that in the grand scheme of things, spending 1 to 3 months studying a subject you may not love is small potatoes compared to the glory of passing the bar exam on the first try. It may seem very intimidating to realize that you've relied on mostly passive studying until this point. The good news is it's not too late. If you are listening to this podcast and you realize the majority of your study time falls into the passive studying category, today is the day to start new habits from the active studying category. Making the change may be uncomfortable, but it will also benefit you when you pass the bar exam on the first try and can move on with your life. Also, more active studying will require more of you in the moment, but you can walk away from your day of studying knowing that you got a lot more done than you did while you were only reading and reviewing outlines. You might be asking, why make the switch to active studying? So you can study less. If you're spending hours and hours reviewing outlines and notes, you're most likely wasting your time. Commit to spending more time actively studying and watch how you're able to be way more productive in the time that you have. Then you can maximize your bar prep time and fight burnout along the way. Time is so precious during bar prep, so you want to make the most of it while you can. If you're interested in learning more about how to change up your study routine to include more active studying, we have more podcasts that we will link to in the show notes that give examples of how to add variety to your study routine. It's never too late to make a change, especially a change for the better. And with that, we are out of time. If you enjoyed this episode of the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review and rating on your favorite listening app. We'd really appreciate it, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Alison at lee@barexamtoolbox.com or allison@barexamtoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at barexamtoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.